I'm Sowmya Balsubramanian. I'm a software engineer at ESNet, and I'm also the primary developer and maintainer of the perfSONAR Lookup service. So over the last 2-3 years, we've been making all these changes to the Lookup service, right from consolidating the Lookup service deployment to moving to the cloud, and then making these improvements to the APIs. And the most recent one being we changed the backend database from MongoDB to Elasticsearch. And it has been running for several months now. And so it's like the right time to look at how we can access the data that is in the perfSONAR Lookup service and start integrating into our own data analysis and visualization tools. So before we jump in, a quick overview of what the perfSONAR Lookup service is. So it is, you can think of the perfSONAR Lookup service as a directory for all the various perfSONAR deployments that is out there in the world. And the Lookup service itself is actually a simple REST JSON based web service, and which is written in Java. And then the backend is currently it's an Elasticsearch database. And so far, the main visualization tool for the Lookup service has been what we call as the services directory, and that's hosted on stats.es.net. And what it does is it shows a map containing all the various Lookup service deployments, similar to what you see on the left side of the screen. And then it also has a simple search interface where you can actually search based on some simple keywords, and it will give information about the toolkit host, services running on it, interface details, and so on. And so if you take a look at the Lookup Service API itself, so on the front end, we have REST JSON APIs for doing registrations, handling renewals, and then and also like delete. Typically, this is handled by the ls registration daemon, and the information can be retrieved using the query API. And the traditional Lookup Service API has been running on port 8090, and you can use the standard HTTP post, put, get, delete methods. We have a Lookup Service client, but then these would work with any standard HTTP clients as well. And now with Elasticsearch, what we have done is we have actually exposed the search capabilities of the Elasticsearch API. And you can actually access it at the ls/lookup_search endpoint. And we have actually exposed both the get and the post methods of search. So a closer look at the legacy query API and what it was able to do. So basically, the legacy query API, it had the ability to take a complete snapshot of the Lookup service. And it also supported some basic keyword filters, like if you wanted to just look at host records or service records. And it also supported some simple and/or type of operations, so you could specify more than 2 or 3 keywords and use a simple or and combination. But typically, if you look at the Lookup service clients, they mostly ended up taking a complete snapshot and processing the data in order to fit the visualization or the analysis that they wanted to run. And so with Elasticsearch API, we can actually leverage the rich query language that Elasticsearch has. And so now that changes what we can do with this Lookup service data. So in order to access the Elasticsearch API, as I mentioned before, it is available at the at this particular endpoint, and you can use both the get or the post method, and you can send the JSON, the query as a JSON body. So the query itself is typically whatever is supported by the standard Elasticsearch queries. So we can do similar things like what the traditional API did. So which is like if you want to narrow down the search space, you can use filters. There's a slight difference though. So in the case of Elasticsearch, the filters can be applied only on keywords. And so what we have done in the backend for the lookup services, we have actually mapped some of the fields as keywords. So we have chosen type, URI, client UUID, and a few others. So the complete list, you can actually get it in that link. And the other fields are actually mapped as text. And Elasticsearch actually, if you want to apply these kind of filters, Elasticsearch actually, the default behavior is it actually provides a way to do that. So all you have to do is, let's say, let's take an example of a text field like group domains. So if you wanted to apply these kind of filters, then you would end up using group domains.keyword when sending the query. And we can combine filters along with text queries. And so again, this helps to combine various keyword searches. So you can say, I want to look at, for example, ESNet hosts. So then you would send in a filter query as well as a group domain match query as well. So these are something, so the reason I have these two examples is basically to showcase that we can actually do whatever we've been doing with the legacy query APIs. You can still do the same things with the Elasticsearch as well. But now we'll move on to things that we can leverage as part of the Elasticsearch query itself. So one thing is you can retrieve only what is specifically needed. So in the case of the legacy query, if you just gave if you wanted a subset of host records, it was going to return the entire thing. But here you can actually specify how many you need, and especially combined with some aggregations and stuff, you can sort it and then just retrieve like the top 10 results and things like that. And you can also specify exactly which field names you care about. So in this case, you can just say, I just want the host name and maybe the OS name if you're looking at that info. And the Elasticsearch would return just those exact fields. So it helps to so your search queries can be now more efficient. Apart from that, so this is again another thing you can leverage with the help of Elasticsearch API. So previously, if you wanted to look at how many records you had in, let's say, how many host records were there, how many service records are there, and all that. So previously, the clients had to get a dump of the entire lookup service and then do this kind of calculations on its end. But now you can actually send a query to the Elasticsearch, and you just specify this aggregations, and then you say just aggregate on type, and it'll automatically give you back the response saying how many documents it found in each of these different categories. And so this again, so this type of aggregation works on keywords. And let's say you wanted to do a kind of a generic search on all the records. So here is something you can do more like a text-like search. So let's say you are interested in looking at all the national laboratories records related to that. Then you can specify this, specify this as part of the query. And you can also specify a cutoff frequency. So what the cutoff frequency does is, especially if the string contains some common terms like is, was, and all that, it would avoid those and return only the most relevant results. So these are like some capabilities that you can leverage now that we have exposed the Elasticsearch API. But then again, these actually work with the standard Elastic client, and it requires a little bit of work into if you want to integrate it into your own analysis or visualization tools. But the cool thing now that we have this access to this Elasticsearch API is you can actually use some existing tool like Grafana to quickly build visualizations. So all you have to do is integrate the Elasticsearch data source into your Grafana data source plugin, and then what you can do is quickly start visualizing this kind of data. So you can easily build these kind of dashboards where you look at the number of perfSONAR hosts, services, and all that, and then maybe look at some top 10 results and look at the distribution and so on. And not just that, so you can also build something that is like more organization or community specific. So in this case, I've built a very rudimentary dashboard for looking at just the perfSONAR hosts. And so it gives me an overview of how many hosts are there, how many services are there. But then I've also created this table where I can actually drill deeper into the actual data itself. And if I'm curious about certain certain fields or certain information, I can actually sort through that data and actually look at it. So I thought I'll just quickly show. So this is something I threw together, like, it just took me like a couple of hours to put the whole thing together, just integrating and creating these dashboards. So that's how easily you can start visualizing the data. I'm hoping you are able to see the screen. So here is my local Grafana instance, and it's actually connecting to this perfSONAR Lookup service. And as you can see, here is some basic info about the perfSONAR hosts. We can see the toolkit distribution, what versions are being installed. And similarly, like, you can look at the toolkit bundle. If you want more details about the host, it's like pretty easy to construct those as well. And you can also build some cool visualizations based on communities. Like you can look at the top 10 communities, top 10 domains. And there's also a word cloud plugin if you want some really fancy visualizations. And then here is the ESNet specific, like the organization specific one. And here you can see that it also supports currently, like, the filters. So you can actually sort based on, oh, it's taking a little bit time. So basically you can sort it according to, this is just a basic sort. And so one thing I want to still note is we continue to have several of the fields to be like, they're still strings. So one thing we are trying to do is, and this is a work that I started like a few months ago, which is to normalize using a log/stash process and maybe start introducing types. And once we have that in there, then we can actually probably start doing some more like numerical operations and stuff like that as well. So this is like a quick overview of what you can do with the new Elasticsearch API. And with that, let's go back and yeah, so if there are any specific questions or anything, I'm happy to answer.
I don't see any questions at the moment.
Just giving people a minute to type. No, that was really great, Sowmya. And like some of those dashboards. So to tie back to Ken's talk, that ESNet number was a little bit lower than it normally is because of some of the ESNet 6 stuff. So it looks like James Deaton actually just asked a question. Is it possible to do like GeoPoint queries and stuff like that yet?
So at this time, we are not able to do that because as I mentioned, like, it's most of these fields are like mapped as strings, but that would change once we have that log/stash pipeline working. So that's one of the things we'll be making sure that all the numerical values as well as like the latitude, longitude get mapped correctly.
Okay. And then Joe Breen had a question. Are there any authentication requirements to query the lookup service?
So the search capabilities it's actually open. So since it's just it's similar to what we have done with the query API of the lookup service, so you can easily plug it and start querying. There's no it's only the search though. Like you cannot actually access any of the other things. Others are locked down.
All right, and then James Eaton asked, do you have a document or issue tracking that you might be tackling with the log stash and the workflow? And is there an opportunity for people to request specific features in the community?
Definitely. So at the end of the day, like, the lookup service, like we want this lookup service to be useful for the community. So definitely, if there are specific requests, you can definitely send them. Probably the best place would be maybe the perfSONAR repository, like just add an issue there and we can start tracking from there.